There are so many great reasons to make a rail fence quilt. If you need a quick quilt, but you want it to look really cool, this is the quilt for you. And I'll tell you a bunch of other reasons as our video continues. If you watch, I am picking contrast. So I have a novelty fabric that's dark. I picked a really good light, and the red is a happy punch. And then the medium is just a medium. And I want to go light, medium, dark, but if you put dark in the middle, magic happens for this 3-rail fence. See how it kind of looks like a shadow? And yet it's the novelty print, so it sticks out. But the other holds its own because you see the zigging and zagging up and down the quilt. It's a really great placement of color. And this, I decided to put it on the back. So let's do the whole process together. Here, this fabric is beautiful. We have high contrast with a light, and then I picked a medium. So dark, light, medium. And that way, we will have great contrast as we make a rail fence together. This rail fence is going to have 3 rails in each block. I'm cutting the rails at 3 inches. And for this block, it's an 8-inch block. You get 3 rails and sew them together. What I have found is that for every strip, you get 5 blocks. So I'm saying 3 strips, 1 of each color, sew them together, and you'll get 5 blocks. If you prefer to have an exact pattern with the yardage amounts and how much to cut and what to sew, we have a very, very inexpensive pattern available on our website. And you're welcome to go there and get it and not have to do math at all. For both a baby quilt and a twin size spread. And we're going to make the twin size spread out of this fabric right here. We're sewing exact 1/4 inch seams. It kind of matters on this one because what's happening is you're taking the 3-inch strips, you're sewing them together, and when you open it up, it needs to be the right size so that when you're finished sewing all 3 strips together, you will have it be 8 inches. First, you sew them all together, I sew them all, and then I press, get that stay pressed, and then I open it and make sure it's truly open. You have to not have it folded or goofed up. It has to open complete and fully. And then I wanted to show you how when I'm doing a bunch of strip sets, I just press on top of each other. So I line it up and I make it so that the seam won't be on top of the other seam, and then I press them all the same direction. So I stay press them and then I press them open, and you can see that I spread it with my hand as I go, and I make sure that there's no folding. I'm showing you right there. It has to be all the way open. If you tug on it, it won't move or open. If you press it like it's folded over, it will be a problem. So you must learn to press carefully and press all the way open. After you've done several, you can dogpile them until they're all pressed. And here we go with the next set. I sew that first strip set, and then I grab the light and I make sure that it is sewn on the other side of the dark. That is what matters, is that you sew them in the correct order so that your rails will do the rail thing they're supposed to do. You can actually make rail fences with 2 rails. You can make them with 5 rails. You could make them with 7 rails and have them smaller or different sizes. It just is such a fun variable. You can make them in scraps. You can make them all different ways. But this is a really classic version of a rail fence. And as we press this forward, we again have to make sure it's clearly all the way open, because the measurement from one side of the 3 to the other side of the 3 needs to be 8 inches. And so if you need help making your 1/4 inch seams accurate, I made a video to help you, and you can look it up. It's in the description below. Now for the fun part. I love cutting the blocks and getting them ready. So this is, if you're a beginner, just have 1 strip set laid down, and I'm cutting 8-inch blocks. I measure to the edge, I come over, and I cut it at 8 inch. If you're an advanced cutter, this is what I really do. Notice I line 2 on top of there. I make sure that the seams are not on top of each other because we don't want the bulk. I line them up so they're even, and then I cut 2 blocks at a time. And it just goes faster, especially if you've made quite a few blocks. It's something to be careful about. Make sure you're really good at cutting before you do it. And here we go, magically, mystically, a pile of blocks ready to lay out. This is the fun part. Well, it's all the fun part, but this is another fun part. And some of you say you can't stand that I have a design floor and I'm on my hands and knees. But if you don't have a design floor, you can either put this on a design wall, or you can figure out how to just lay it on your ironing board 1 row at a time. And notice there's only 2 positions of the blocks. I know in my brain there are only 2 positions, so that makes it really quick and simple, and it stops your confusion. See, the light is down or the light is to the right as we're facing it this way. Every time I lay it down, there it is again, either down or to the right, and I know it's the opposite of the block on top of it. Even though it feels complicated, once you realize what a simple, easy system it is, you can lay it backwards, forwards, upside, downside, and you will get your blocks going in the right direction. And it just has such a striking appearance. And this one would be so nice for a college dorm room or just to decorate a bedroom in your home that has a single bed that you want a beautiful spread for. It's such a fast block. Truly, I can make one of these easily in a day, a quilt top in a day. So simple. You see me pinning them because that is my process. I pin them because I do not want to get confused, and if I pick them up in piles, I will be confused later. So I've numbered them. There they are, and I'm able to sew those the way they should go. As I take the pins out and sew these into rows, I'm very careful to do my regular 1/4 inch seam. It's very important that as we sew these together, they all line up properly. The only real trick to talk about is that if you watch me, I hold them up corner to corner because one is the straight edge of a strip, and the other is where you have your 2 seams in between. If you line up the corners and make sure, that is the joy of using 100% quality cotton. It will ease if you have a little bit of, it's not quite exactly 8 inches, but it's really, really close. Then you can just line it up. Watch, I put the corner to corner, and then I sew them, and it works. I'm glad you're here for the pressing because this is something that sometimes happens with other kind of blocks, but see how we have 2 seams and then we have a straight side with no seams. When you press, if you can, and there's the chance, then press towards no seams and it lays flatter than flat. It's so great to get to press this way. So with these strips, I press the seam back and forth every other block towards the piece that has no seams. So for row number 1, it will go one way, and when I get to the next row, it's going to match up perfectly. I will show you. Here are 2 rows we're going to sew together, and you can see that the seams go opposite directions because of the way we've pressed them. And then when it's time to sew the rows together, it works perfectly to lock them in. Here I turned it upside down so you could see better. Every place in between a block, the seams go back and forth, and so it's perfect to sew together this way. You put the row that you want to sew to the next row together, and I line up the blocks. So I get the 1 seam and I budge it with my little fingers, and then I hold it and I sew to that block, and every time I get started on a new block, I stop, I line up the next block, and that way if there's any excess fabric, because you've used 100% amazing quality cotton, you can ease it so that your blocks will line up really, really well. The fun about this quilt is you sew the blocks, you sew the rows, you press it open, you don't have any borders to sew on. Let's take a sneak peek at the corners. Close enough really is close enough. I am not a perfectionist. If it looks good as you're looking at it, it's close enough. It wasn't perfect, but it's perfect enough. So don't be mean to yourself. One of them wasn't even exact. I think it's that one, and you can't even tell in the picture. Be nice. However close you get it, it's good enough, and it will look so great as people walk by in the hallway and glance into the bedroom and see how beautiful it is on the bed you put it on. So keep sewing it, put it together, and you too will love how it looks in the end. See how beautiful it looks? And after I quilt it, it's going to be breathtaking. The baby quilt is much smaller, perfect for a baby, and we have both sizes in our pattern. Look how great they are. Have fun sewing and share us with your friends so they can have fun too. Stay merry and creative.